Hi everyone, welcome to this tutorial on Microsoft Excel. Let's look at an example of one more useful function in Excel, and that is VLOOKUP. Now VLOOKUP is used to see if a value exists in a range of values, and we can create a range of values which is nothing but a block of cells which has a name and can be referenced. So mainly to use VLOOKUP, we need to create a named range, and that can be referenced anywhere in the workbook. Or the other option is you can always drag and select the range of data in which you would want to search something. Now there is also other functions such as Hlookup, which pretty much does the same thing. However, it does it horizontally, that is left to right instead of vertically. There are other functions like lookup and xlookup and so on. So when we talk about VLOOKUP, let's see how we do that. So for example, this is the range of, or this is the data which has been given to you, and here is the question: find the employee name with employee ID 107. Now assume that you might have huge amount of data and you may want to search something. So how do we do it? Now here I have created some column and then some basic formatting. I've given it as an employee ID. I've given employee name. Now what I can do is I can create a range of data. Now how do I do that? Or a named range. So what you can do is you can select the data and then you can do a right click. Now here you have something like get data from table range. So you can do that. You can define a name. So you can click on this, and here you can give a name to the range, what you would want to call it. So for example, let's say our search. Now that's the named range I'm creating, and just say okay. So the scope is workbook, and I've created a named range which you can see here. So it shows for search, our search. So you have created a named range. Now how do we do a VLOOKUP here? So for that we can use a formula. So for example, I would want to search for employee name where employee ID is whatever you would want to search for. So employee ID we can give here 107. Now that's what we would want to search the employee name for, and employee name is what we are interested in. Now what we can do is we can use the function option here. I can do a insert function, and that shows me different functions which are here. Now VLOOKUP is showing up because I have recently searched for it, or you can basically just type in here look and you can do a go. So that shows you all the lookup options what you have, like lookup, Hlookup, match, VLOOKUP, and so on. So we would be interested in VLOOKUP. So let's select that and click on OK. Now that basically opens up this function arguments, and it shows what does this function do. So it says looks for a value in the leftmost column of a table and then returns a value in the same row from a column you specify. By default, the table must be sorted in an ascending order. Now you can basically say this is what you would want to search for. What is the lookup value? If you place your cursor here, it says what is the table array. That is nothing but the range, which we can use our named range. Here we have the column index number, which basically tells me what is the column number in the range which we want. So what is the value we want from which column? And then basically you have range lookup, which basically is the fourth option. And range lookup is nothing but it can have two values, so true or false. So true basically means closest match, and then false should be an exact match. So let's do that. So for lookup value, we would want to give a particular value, which is nothing but we would be interested in, say, employee name. So I can basically search for a value based on the lookup value. Now how do we do it? So we are saying we would want to search for employee ID, which is 107. So what I can do is I can select this cell here which tells that this is the value or employee ID for which I would want to search the employee name. I could actually select the cell here which is H, so that whatever value you feed in here you can search for that value. So might be we can select this one which is H6, and whatever value we key in here we will be searching for employee name for that employee ID. Now table array is we would want to give a range. So what we can do is we can give our range. So for example, we had selected something like our search. And if you see here, that already selects or shows me employee ID, employee name, email address. So it gives me the range. Now column index number. So which column are we interested in? That means what is the value we are searching for. So we are searching for employee name, which is the second column. So I can just say 2, and that basically is the column number. And then you have to give a range lookup, which is a logical value. So either you give an exact match or you can basically give a closest match. So we can say, for example, do a 0, which basically means false, or you can say 1, which is true. So let's go for 0. Now that's our formula. So it says VLOOKUP. You will search for the value as per H6 in the range, and then you are looking for employee name, which is column number 2, and then true or false. So let's click on OK, and that basically gives me the value, which is Penelope Burge. So here I'm searching for employee name, and you can basically drag this for other columns, and you can do that. So if it finds employee ID here, now say for example, if we had an employee ID, somebody enters an employee ID which is not in the range. For example, let's try 121, and then you see this is basically an error, right? Because it does not have any employee ID with 121. Now how do I take care of this? So there is a formula which is called IFERROR, and that can be used to take care of this. So if the value is not found, then it will show whatever I would want to show here. So what I can do is I can still select this, and what I can do is I can search in function. Say for example, this is the function we are looking at, but what we can do is we can test it here. So for example, if I look in function and if I search for error and say go, so there are lots of functions here, and this is the function we are interested in, if error. So if I say okay, now this takes the value, and what is the value if error? So for value, what I can do is basically I can select the value from here, which is nothing but our VLOOKUP formula, and value if error. So for example, I will basically say, for example, not found. So we can try this and we can say okay. Now here it says not found. So whenever it is NA, it is not found. Now if we look at the formula here, it says if error, it takes the value of H7, which is nothing but our VLOOKUP, and then it is showing us the value which we have entered. So for example, if I would say 107 like earlier and then hit on enter, so it says Penelope Cruz and it shows us the value, right? And if we enter something else, then basically here it shows NA and it shows not found. But what we want to do is we want to merge these two. So what I can do is I can get rid of, or I can basically take this one. Now what I would want is I want this formula to be here. So what I can do is I can say if error, and then basically given your VLOOKUP option or function here, and then say for example not found here, not found. Now that basically will take care of any kind of error if the value is not found. So when we say 121, it basically says not found. But if I say 107, which is found, then it shows me the value. So we are using VLOOKUP, but then we are also using IFERROR, which will take care of our error message, or basically the not applicable, pound not applicable, replaced with whatever value we key in. Similarly, we can do the same thing here. So we have the find the job title. So we are interested in finding out the job title once the employee name is given. Now, employee name can basically have a value from the cell or whatever value you would want to key in. How do we do it? So we basically start with our VLOOKUP. So that's the function we are interested in. So you can just do a double click. Now you are interested in finding out the value, whichever is given here. So that's the lookup value. And then you are interested in finding out the job title from the range. So I will still give our range, which basically also shows, for example, let's do a double click here, and that basically selects the range. And now I'm interested in finding out the job title, so that's column number 4, and then I can just give 0, which is for false. So now we have given our VLOOKUP, but that shows not applicable because we have not given any employee name. So we can key in the value here, which says Fred Stone. And now if we are basically giving the value, so Fred Stone, now we will have to search if there is any job title which is Fred Stone. So here is the value, so that should be showing up. Let's check what has gone wrong. So we are giving our range, we are interested in finding out the value, but what the mistake what we did here was that when we want to search for a value, say for example, let's take this VLOOKUP and let's replace this value of H12 with the value here, so Fred Stone, and then basically we will give our range, we will say which is the column we are interested in, and then give true or false. So we can also basically take care of this error message. So for example, let's take this complete formula from here and just copy this formula, and now we can put in here the formula. But then this is where we were searching for H6, which was employee ID. Now that's not what we are interested in. We are interested in finding out the value. So let's take this one and replace this with the value given here, and then I give my range. I say which is the column I'm interested in. So I'm interested in looking for job title, and then let's search. So it basically tells me not found. So let's check this. Now the error which we were facing was because when we talk about your VLOOKUP, let's look at the formula again. And here, say for example, I go for function and then I select VLOOKUP, and say for example I say okay. Now just look at the description here. Looks for a value in the leftmost column of a table. Now earlier the range which we had selected had the leftmost column as employee ID, and that's why it was giving an error. So how do we fix that? So for example, let's basically remove this function from here. Now what we want to do is we would want to search for the stockbroker. Now if you see here, I have given a range which is B1 to D21. So we would want the value for what we would want to search, say employee name, that should be the leftmost column. So that's how we have our function. So let's do that. So say for example the name is given here, so we want a range. So either we can create a range like earlier by selecting, say for example, this data. Now am I interested in salary? No, I'm interested in job title. right? So I can basically just select these 3 columns, and then I can define a name. So I can say our search 2, and let's give a named range, and that's only because we would want to easily reference or use that named search or named range. Now here we would want to use VLOOKUP, but we would also do an if error. Now within that we can say VLOOKUP, and then you need to select what is the value what your function takes. So basically this is my function. We will say if the value is not found, then we will give this. So you can create an external structure, and then within your VLOOKUP we will say the leftmost column which we are interested in. So that's your employee name. So in employee name, we have the value. So either I can directly select the value here in the column B, or I will give the value whichever is fed in here, the employee name. Then I need to give a range. So let's select our range. So that's your our search 2. And then you need to select the column number. So we are interested in finding out the job title. So that's the 3rd column. So let's say 3, and then just give a 0, and then hit on enter. So it says not found because you have not given any employee name. Now let's try to find the job title of Fred Stone. So I can just select, or I can say equal, and then I can just give in a value, and that basically shows me the job title. So this is how you use VLOOKUP. We have also used if error, which basically takes care of error message if the value is not found. So for example, we can test this. Here we have Fred Stone. So for example, if I just empty this and I point it to something which does not exist, so that shows me not found. Or if you just select this and then key in a value, it shows you this. Might be we can just type in. So if I say Fred, then basically it says not found because we are looking for exact match. Now if we had changed this to the closest match, something like this, then it would have tried to find something, but then we don't have anything which is just with this. So there are different ways of doing it. So what we can do is we can always go for the exact match, and that's basically the value. And here we can basically key in any value. For example, I would be interested in finding out this one, and let's give this. So you can search in this way. So you can also have statements which can be searching one related to other. Now here the question was to find the job title of Fred Stone. So let's type in Fred Stone, and that basically shows me the job title which we are interested in. So let's search for job title. Let's go for exact match and then search. So it is stockbroker. So
if getting your learning started is half the battle, what if you could do that for free? Visit Skill-Up by Simplilearn. Click on the link in the description to know more.
Now that we have looked at VLOOKUP, it would be interesting to see how horizontal lookup or Hlookup works. It basically works on the same lines, but here instead of vertically searching through the columns, the range is more of horizontally defined. So we search in rows rather than in columns. So for example, this is the data which has been given to you, and you have various columns. So you have employee ID, you have your employee name, you have employee email address, you basically have the job title of different employees, and then basically you have the salary. So this is the data which has been given to you, and you are asked to search, or you're interested in finding out, say, the salary based on employee name or job title based on employee ID. So what we need to do is we need to define the range here. Now range can depend on what you are searching for. So for example, when I'm searching employee name and salary, so I am interested in these 4 rows. When I'm saying employee ID and job title, then might be this is the range and I don't need salary. So I can create a named range if we are interested in, so that we can easily search for it, or we can straight away give the first cell value, which is basically A1 here, and then the last value here, which is G, and then you can give 5. So you can do that, or you can create a named range, whichever way you would want to do it. So for example, we would want to create a named range for our first question, which is find the salary of Eden Connell using Hlookup. So we are interested in this. So let's select these 4 rows all the way for your columns. Now, like we did earlier, we can just define a name. Might be we can call it our search 3, and we can just give OK. So that's the named range which we have created. Now what we would want is we want to search for the salary based on employee name. So here we can insert our function. So let's look up and let's search for look and just click on go. So here you have Hlookup, and basically that's the function I'm interested in. Say OK. So this says what is the lookup value which you are interested in. So we are interested in finding out the value based on the employee name. So for example, let's select this cell. That gives us more dynamism, and you can add in any name and you can search for the salary. Or you can basically give the employee name exactly from the employee name value here, which is D2. So we can give Eden Connell from here. So let's select this. Now table array, so we need to give our range. So let's say our search 3. Then you need to give the row index number. Now this is different than VLOOKUP. In VLOOKUP you have column index number, and here you have row index number. So what are you interested in searching for? So we are interested in searching for salary. Now in our range, that is basically the 4th row. Remember, we created a range from employee name to salary. So let's give the row index number, which is 4, and the range lookup will say 0, which is basically exact match, and that completes our formula. So click on OK, and that basically gives me the salary for Eden Connell. Now that's basically because we have fed in the value here, and that is basically giving me this. So I can again do if error if I would be interested in, to basically take care of error message if the value is not found. For that you can look into the previous example, which is VLOOKUP. Now similarly, we are interested in finding out the job title for employee ID 105. How do we do that? So we need to use Hlookup. Well, we could have done with VLOOKUP, but here the data is more arranged in the form of rows. So how do we do that? So we can again use Hlookup, and we can give a range or named range, or let's for this time let's basically key in our range manually. So we can do that. So let's go for Hlookup. Now what do we want to search for? So we will say this is the value. Then we need to give a range. Now as I said, if you would want to give a range manually, so for example I'll say A, and then I'll say A1 colon, and then I'm interested in G, and then the row will be 4. So salary row is not what we are not interested in. So let's say G, and then we can give 4. So that basically gives me the range, right? Instead of having a named range. So we can do that. And then we need to give the row index number. So we are interested in finding out the job title, which is basically in our range, the 4th row, and then give 0 for true or false. So if you see here, it tells if it is 1, it is approximate match. False is an exact match, and we can close this bracket. That completes our formula. It takes the value which is given in employee ID, and then it will try to search for the job title. So that basically shows wherever the employee ID is 105, the job title is fabricator. Again, you can use if error, wherein your if error can then be working on Hlookup and can take care of error, so that if an employee ID is keyed in for which there is no matching value, then it will not show you a not applicable error. Instead of that, it will replace with the word whatever you have specified. So in this way, you can easily use Hlookup to search from the range of data which is horizontally arranged. And in the previous example, we were seeing how you use VLOOKUP when the data is arranged vertically. So we have looked at VLOOKUP and Hlookup, and what we have seen is VLOOKUP has a limitation in one way, that we need to basically give a range where the leftmost column is the one which is used. Now, instead of that, we might be interested in searching in specific columns and not all the columns. Well, that can also affect the time taken to search for the data, wherein we can select particular columns or particular ranges rather than selecting all the data which has to be searched for. So for example, we have this question: find the salary of Hank Saunders. Now that's the employee name which we have here, and we would want to find out the salary. So what are the columns we are interested in? So one is your employee name and one is your salary, and these are the only two columns which we are interested in. So instead of using VLOOKUP, now, like I've shown earlier, you can create a named range for these two columns and you can use that, or we can manually give the range here. So let's go for lookup function here, and lookup function will basically help us in searching what we are interested in. So we are interested in finding out the employee name, and we are interested in finding out the salary based on the employee name. So how do we do that? So here in lookup, I can first give the value which is here, employee name. Now whatever employee name is keyed in here, we will be searching for salary of that employee. Now lookup function needs a lookup value, so we are searching based on employee name. Then it says lookup vector, so we will basically then say what is going to be our lookup vector. So here we need to give a range. So what are we interested in? We are interested in finding out the salary based on employee name. So first goes our range based on which we need to search. So that's your employee name. So let's, for example, select this one. So that's our range, B1 to B21. So that will basically have the employee name in which we will be searching for. And then we are interested in searching out the result vector, that is basically the column from which we want the value. That's our salary column. So let's select this, and that completes our lookup function. So now if you hit on enter, it shows that for this employee where the name is Hank Saunders, the salary is 5,400. Now you can test it by basically giving some other name. So for example, if I replace this with, say, Fred Stone, and that basically shows me the value for Fred Stone, we can replace it to the question which we have, that is Hank Saunders, and that shows me the salary. So that's a simple example of lookup which allows you to search by selecting a range of columns rather than having the leftmost column which has to be referenced. Similarly, we have one more question: find the employee ID of this particular email ID. So we need to again use our lookup function. So we'll say lookup. Now what are we interested in? We will search based on this email address. So I will select this. Then I need to give that based on email address, we are searching the employee ID. So email address is in this column. So let's select this range. And then we are interested in employee ID. So then goes our result vector. So select this column, and that basically completes your formula. So close this bracket and hit on enter. So that basically shows me the employee ID for an employee with this email address. So this is how you use lookup. Now, as I've explained earlier, you can be using the if error, and you can basically see how your index match can be used. Now here is an example of if error. So basically this shows how if error helps. So say for example, as I showed in your sheet 1, so check for employee James Bond. If the value is not present, display not found. And what are we doing? We are basically nesting our VLOOKUP inside if error with a not found option, which basically says if the value given in this cell H is not found, then basically it will display not found. So here you also notice that the range which has been given has been selected, that is B1 to C21. Now we could have used a named range, which basically helps us in searching for multiple functions. We are searching for 2, that is the column number 2 here, that is employee name. So check for employee James Bond if the value is not present or no. So we are basically just searching for employee name here, and then give your 0 or 1. So that's basically usage of your if error, which I've shown earlier, and the same thing can be applied for your Hlookup also. Now, suppose you have been given some additional questions. For example, instead of using your VLOOKUP or Hlookup or lookup examples, what we have seen, say for example, you are asked to find the salary of Peter Daniels. Now, we already know how to find that using VLOOKUP, right? So for example, we want to find out the salary for this employee name, which is Peter Daniels. I can use a VLOOKUP. However, sometimes we may also want to use an index match. An index match is also one useful function to do that. So we can basically search based on that. So we have to define the range of data. We have to then say what do we want to match. So that's basically an employee name. And then we are interested in finding out, say for example, based on the range of employees, you would want to find out the value of salary. So we are then giving a range and doing it. How do we do that? So for example, here I can use a function which is called index. And if you see here, it says returns a value or reference of the cell at the intersection of a particular row and column in a given range. So this is where index function can be useful. Now we can start with this function. It says it needs an array, that's nothing but a range. So we can basically select all our data. So I can say A1 all the way to E21. So that basically is my range. Now I would want to find the salary of this employee name, which is Peter Daniels. So I can use internally here, basically you need to give a row number. So what we can do is we can do a match. So we can use an internal function match. Now we need to basically give it correctly. So we need to say match. Now how does this match function work? So we need to basically match for a value. So for example, we'll select whatever employee name is given here. So that's Peter Daniels. Now that's basically what we would want to match. Now where do we want to match this? So we want to match in the column B, which has employee names. So we can give a range which is B1 to B21. So that's basically within the employee names, we are looking for a match, which is given here. That's in H6. And we want to do a match. So we want to do a exact match. So let's do a comma 0. And then we are interested in finding out the salary based on this match, and salary is in our 5th column. So let's basically give the column number here and then just close this bracket. So that basically completes your function, and just hit on enter. So that shows me the salary of Peter Daniels, right? So this is an easy way wherein you can use the index function. Remember, first you give the range, and then you need to give your matching condition. So when you say match, I would take the value whatever is given in this cell. I will search in the range of values, which is employee names. I will find an exact match, and what I'm interested in is finding the salary for Peter Daniels. Now similarly, say for example you have been given a question, find the employee ID with salary 10,000. So you want to find out the employee ID wherever the salary is 10,000. So we are obviously looking for an exact match. Now how do we do that? So we can start with our index function, and within index function we need to give a range. So for example, I'm interested in finding out, say for example, our range, which is A1 to E21. So that's what I'm interested in. Or you are actually interested in searching based on, say, your salary. So you are interested in searching the employee ID. So might be if I just do a A21, let's see what happens here. Now then I can just do a match. So match will be now done based on the value which is here, H13. So I will do a match for this one. Now I need to give a range. So let's basically give a range which will be, we are interested in searching employee ID based on the salary column. So that's your E column. So I will say E1 to E21. That's what I'm interested in searching. Finding a match for this salary. We want an exact match. So first let's close this one. Now that's fine. I mean, we are interested in finding out the employee ID based on the match which is within this range. And then what we would want to do is we would want to basically find the employee ID. Employee ID is in my column A. So what I can do is I can additionally give a match here, and then I can say I'm interested in the finding out the value for employee ID, and that basically needs a range. So the range here will be just the column headings. So we will give A1 all the way to E1. So that's the range in which we would want to search, and we would want to find a match for employee ID. We want an exact match. So let's close this one, and that basically closes my match, and we need to close our index function. So now that shows me employee ID where the salary is 10,000. So this is how you can do your index matches, where you can give a range, then you can say what you need to match within which particular column, whether it is an exact match or approximate match, and then the column from where you are interested in finding out the value. So same thing we did here. We basically gave a complete range, and if you closely see, we were only interested in finding out the employee ID. So here I gave a range A1 to A21, which is basically this particular column. So that's where we are interested in finding out. Match basically will give your lookup value, so that's H13. Then we gave a range, which is salary. That's what we are interested in. And then we said when we are doing a match, we are only interested in finding out the employee ID, which is in a range of column names, and then doing an exact match. So this is how you can use index match instead of lookup, which can also give you some exceptions in searching for specific columns or specific rows. Now, if error, we have already discussed, where you nest your VLOOKUP or Hlookup inside it. So this is how you can use your lookup functions, Hlookup, VLOOKUP, lookup, or index match to search for data. Some function like this, which shows up xln.xlookup, and then you're trying to search for something. So don't be surprised with that. So xln is basically a prefix added to functions that don't exist in the version of Excel you are using. You have Excel 2013, and say your friend has a newer version of Excel, say Office 365 or Excel 2016, and basically he uses a new cool function and sends the file to you. So that's where you will have this xln prefix as I'm showing up here. So for example, what is the job title of Xavier Power? is what you would want to search, and here the function which shows up Excel and XLOOKUP, and then you're searching. So this is basically something which is the function. Now if I just select what it has selected here, and if I hit on enter, it shows that this does not work in my Excel here, and that's because of the version. But what I can do is I can fix this by removing this details here, and that basically shows lookup. We are searching for job title based on employee name, which is in this field H6, and then we need to give a range. So we need to give a range of names, employee name, and then basically the job title range, which is basically the job title. So now if I just hit on enter, it gives me the value. So it's as simple as that. Similarly here, what is the employee ID of the person with this email? We have already looked at the lookup function. So if it shows your XLN X lookup, all you need to do is remove this and then keep the lookup function searching for the value based on the range of values, and then searching for a value within a range of values. So just hit on enter and that gives you the value. And same thing goes for this job title. So what is the job title and salary of employee name? So we have this function. Now what I can do is here I'm interested in finding out the value for this particular function. How do I fix this? I can basically select this and then just do a lookup based on the values, and it basically says you can't change part of an array. So we can fix this. Now what we need to do is we need to basically search based on this particular value. So we will basically say I want to do a lookup. Now lookup should be based on employee name, whatever name is given here. Then you need to find the job title and salary. So for job title, I want to find based on employee name. So I will give a range. And then basically I will say I'm interested in finding out the job title. So I will give a different range and then basically close this. So that basically shows, now this is basically because of the function which we have here. So basically to fix this, what we will have to do is we will have to delete all the columns here which were selected, such as employee name, job title and salary, because that was giving you an error. You cannot delete a part of an array. Now what we want to do is we want to find the job title and salary based on the employee name. So we can do that using lookup as we have done earlier. So we will use a lookup function. Now what we are interested in finding out is the job title based on employee name. So we can select this cell which does not have any value. Then we need to basically say from which range or based on what you want to search. So we want to search based on employee name and we want to find out the job title. So we can basically give a range of values and then we will be interested in finding out the job title. So let's select the job title range and that basically completes our lookup. So let's close this and hit on enter. Now it says obviously error because this does not have any value. We will fix that by giving in a value here. Same thing we can do for salary. So for example, I can just drag and drop it here. And in this one, instead of basically having a range, which is we will be interested in finding out the salary. So let's see what is the range we give. So the range should be employee name. So we will basically select employee name as the range. And then we are interested in finding out the salary. So we will select this particular range. And what we are interested in finding out is basically employee name, or we are interested in finding out based on employee name. So let's select this particular column and then hit on enter. So both of these are NA values. Now just feed in an employee name. So we will say, for example, Eduardo. and that basically gives me the job title and salary. So that's how you can fix your Excel FN error. So same thing goes here. So it shows you XLN is what you would want to search. Might be if you don't find something, you would want to push in name not found. So first is we will have to fix this part. So we will have to remove this because that's not supported in my Excel. And then I have lookup. I'm searching based on H24, which is basically employee ID. You're giving a range which is A2 to A21 because we would want to find name not found for a particular employee ID. So I'm giving a range which is A2 to A21. I'm trying to search for the name which is from B2 to B21, and then I'm giving name not found. So say for example, we can do this lookup, but then with lookup you don't have this direct option. What we can do is we can use if error, and then basically try to search. So that gives your lookup value, and then you will have to close this one. And then again, if it gives you some error like this, we can obviously go for VLOOKUP and fix this. So here we are searching for a particular range, and then let's search for this value. And basically to fix this, what I did was I just use a VLOOKUP. So we know that employee ID 121 does not exist. So I'm just using if error. I'm doing a VLOOKUP where I'm searching for the value given in H19. And then I'm saying that I would want to search from a range which is basically B1 to C21, that is in employee name and say email address, for example. And we would want to basically search for name not found. So we can, instead of giving B21 or B1 to C21, we can restrict it to just B1 to B21. We are searching in column 2. We are searching for exact value, and if it does not find, then it says name not found, and that's how we do it. So we can always replace and fix this Excel FN errors. If you are using some spreadsheet which was, or an Excel which was sent by someone else who is using a different version. So in this way we can use your different lookup functions, take care of your errors, use an index match. Thank you and keep learning.
Hi there, if you like this video, subscribe to the Simplilearn YouTube channel and click here to watch similar videos. To nerd up and get certified, click here.